It's for the Indus River Valley. Indus River Valley is this area in kind of northern India. You can see we've already talked about Mesopotamia. That's ancient Egypt. There were settlements in China, but the Indus River Valley is another major civilization of the time. Again, here's a closer look of where it settled. It's built along the Indus River. We keep coming back to the same theme, the same idea that all the settlements are along a river because that's where you get your protection and you can water your crops and you can get water for your people. The city was built actually on raised platforms and foundations, and it was to help protect from flood so that when things flooded, you didn't have the water coming into your homes. All the buildings were uniform. They were right-angled streets, so it was kind of like a big sheet of graph paper. And the lines of the graph papers where the water could run, and your houses were built on top of the squares, if that makes any sense. Um, they were very humbled people. They spread the resources among the living. They saw no benefit in burying stuff with the dead. So, in other cultures, sometimes people would bury people with their favorite jewelry and all that. And these people said there's no point in it. They're not going to need it in the afterlife. Instead, let's make sure everyone has equal access to all the resources. They didn't have a whole lot of weapons. In fact, when we look at it, we don't see a whole lot of evidence of military. So it tells us that they didn't have a lot of enemies, that most of the people there seemed to get along. And they may have had the very first writing system, but that's kind of debated. Other cultures say that they did it. But one of the most popular ones comes from there. They had rock houses, and every house had its own bath and drainage system. So it's not like indoor plumbing where they flush the toilet, but they had a way to get the toilet. They would have like a seat, and a pipe would go out into the river from their house. So they had a way to remove waste from their house, and they could bathe within their house. Because, unlike many other civilizations in the Indus River Valley, sanitation was considered very important, and cleanliness. They realized the importance and its value towards health. They had a lot of pottery and beads and clay, just like many other things. They would build statues of goddesses for worship. And really, nobody knows how this civilization fell apart or what led to the end of this civilization because it seemed to be thriving pretty well. They had a lot of inventions that seemed ahead of their time, building on raised platforms, having the indoor plumbing type situation. They didn't seem to have many enemies, so nobody really knows what happened. This is kind of a picture of what it would look like. Again, this is the ruins, so it's hard to see, but each of these squares would have been an area for housing, and it was built up so that when the water flooded, it would maybe come up to these walls, but it wouldn't come into the homes. Here's a better example. Couldn't come into the homes because this was on a raised platform, but a pretty sophisticated structure for the time. Their jewelry. So we're just going to kind of look at this real quick. How is the Indus River Valley similar to Mesopotamia? Um, the people settled near water is one of the biggest things you need to understand, that they farmed and that they were polytheistic. That means they had multiple gods. How are they different? They actually seem to be more civilized or more advanced of the time, thinking up platforms so that they didn't have to worry about flooding. They had their own type of indoor plumbing, and they didn't seem to have many enemies that they needed to worry about. So that is your notes for the Indus River Valley.